another Talk It Over. First one of the new year of 24, so that's quite exciting. I'm glad we've all made it. We have perfect attendance.
I'm glad we made it.
I'm glad we made it. We all made it here.
2023 was a bad year.
We made it to 24.
We got here.
We all got here, so that's good. That's good. We made it through New Year's Eve. Well, we're of course glad you guys could join us. And today I've of course got Michaela and Dave with me today here on Talk It Over, starting a new series about habits of a healthy heart. And today's message, of course, really good. Diving into that, look at self-examination, things that maybe we need to look at to start the year out if we want to make some changes into some more healthy habits. But before we dive into that, how your week's been? Anything new, exciting, bigger changes, things like that?
For me, it was just getting back into the swing of work. After being off for the Christmas break, and so even just getting into habits. Not more so as like resolutions per se, but just like goals and like re-establishing things that just kind of went away with the break. So it's been hard because like waking up early and all of that, but it's good. It's good. Yeah, getting that week off. Yeah, I had the same week off, and holy moly. Trying to get back into the routine. I had to set my alarm like super early Sunday morning so I could get that started. Yeah. Again, back to the work alarm on Monday morning as well, just to try to kickstart that habit of, okay, I can't sleep until 8:30, 9 o'clock. I have to get up. I love that you're sleeping, by the way.
Yeah, 8:30, 9 o'clock is a sleep-in. Yeah, if I can get to 9, I think we're doing very well. So it's hard. It's hard with an 8-year-old that's raring to go. And trying to.
That's pretty good for an 8-year-old.
He can get to about that. That's about the long and short. He can make about 9 if he's sleepy. But
wow,
normally he's up between 8 and 8:30. So
my boys 7 o'clock
all the time, ready to go.
They'd already been up for a while and they'd run out of patience at like 7 o'clock.
I'm bored now. It's time for everybody.
It's time, yeah. Especially my youngest.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We all know who doesn't have the kid here. So. Can't speak to that.
Yeah. Not yet.
Not yet.
So that conversation we were having when I was away, that how it really throws us off when routine is gone. Mm-hmm. It's nice because you're vacationing and relaxing, but it's stressful.
Yeah. Because
the routine allows you to like pre-decide this is how it's going to go.
Yep.
And when you get out of that, it's funny how we look forward to getting back to that routine again.
Yep.
And it's easy to break those routines, which is the habits thing, right?
Yep.
We build these habits in, but they're not enough because they're easy to break too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, oh, I'm solid at this. It's never going to change. And then you get a week like this where everything's upside down.
Yep.
And okay, now it's hard again.
Yeah, it's hard again.
Crazy.
Yep.
And that's why the whole like who before do, where it's like an identity piece. So if you want to be a healthy person, it has to come from that identity piece first, and then establishing those external habits.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what Craig in the message did such a good job talking about, is it's about the heart. Yeah. So he got it from that perspective. It's not just habits. Mm-hmm. I know we'll get into that, but I thought that was really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I know for you, one son moving out this past week has been a big shift.
Big change. So he's, off to school. He's the first one to leave the house.
Yeah.
Ironically, the youngest is the first one to leave the house. Big change. And it's been so busy, I haven't had time to think about it yet.
Yeah.
Because we were renovating and weddings and all kinds of stuff going on. So it's just been insane. Yeah. So this week, when it gets back into a regular routine, we'll see what that looks like.
Kind of decompressing and just kind of going over everything that's kind of happened in the past couple of weeks and get all that kind of processed and on to the next bit, right?
I think I'm a week behind you guys.
Yeah, almost.
I was still away, right? Still kind of doing all that stuff.
Yeah. Still 2023.
You kind of felt like it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad I survived.
Yeah. See, I made it all here, so it's all good. All right, so our scripture today comes from Psalms 139, verses 23 and 24. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Again, a great way of that self-examination. Look at me, test me, bring that so I can figure out that there's an issue to make a change.
Yeah.
So again, diving into this new year, do you guys have any goals or resolutions or anything that you want to maybe tackle this year or put into place as we go through 24?
Yeah, I think there's always a few. I haven't done my one word yet. I haven't picked that. We do our one word
Yep.
challenge that I look forward to. And I like it because it's about asking God and maybe other people, like, what do you think? Because the stuff we pick for ourselves, we're often blind to what we need to really work on.
Yep.
And so it's kind of nice to get like an outside input, like God, show
Yep.
me what I need. Although it's a little bit more dangerous that way. Makes it a little bit harder. So sometimes you want to default to the easier one that you pick for yourself.
Yep.
And then last year was just such a crazy year that my workout routine just went right out the window. And I did a little bit here and there, but I want to get back to that this year and be more consistent with it. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm with you on the workout routine. That's one of my goals too, and just hopefully going up to like 4 days a week at least. So I started that last week and I did 3 days. So I was like, okay, awesome.
Yep.
But between the cold, like the whole environment piece really affects me establishing habits. And so when it comes to working out, I like to do it in the morning, which means I need to wake up early enough before work to get that done. So there's just all these other habits really that need to be established before that, which is basically no snoozing. And that is hard.
Yep.
Very hard. But I think the internal piece to that is just doing things even if I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
So even if I wake up, I'm tired and don't feel like, snoozing, or I do feel like snoozing and I don't feel like working out, like doing it anyways, and seeing how that affects other parts of my life. Because I'm a feeler through and through. But I'm seeing how God is trying to change that. So I'm not living based on how I feel.
Yeah. But you know what? Even for those, I'm not on the feeling side, but it's the same thing. I have to pre-decide.
Yes.
Yep.
Because if it's how do I feel about it in the moment, if it's a difficult thing, I don't really feel like it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. And so the whole pre-decide and thinking it through. So like putting out my clothes if I'm going to work out, not stopping to think about, do I want to? Like that's the worst thing to ask, right?
Yeah.
But just getting into I'm going to go through the motions and just do it. So that's what you have to figure out. How do I arrange my environment that I'm not stopping to think about, do I want to or not?
Yes.
Because it just shuts down all those habits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also not like, for even as a perfectionist too, it's like I gotta do like the amount of time that I want to get to at some point with my workouts, starting out small. So even if it is like 10 to 15 minutes, that's still something. And then working up to a larger time frame, that would be a goal. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That week of off, it throws out even some of the pre-deciding things, finding that it just kind of disappears and you lose that pre-decision, and it makes it much harder. Certainly, again, the workout idea, getting that into a better routine of that pre-decision. And then this past week, Emmett's sparring gear came in, so he's already been in it, and we've been downstairs kicking, punching each other. He doing more of the kicking and punching than me. But just getting him in the direction of starting with it, just to help him with the basics of sparring. So having him as the encouragement, he got the gear and he's like, "We're going tomorrow, right?" And I'm like,
he's got the enthusiasm.
Yeah, he's like, he's ready to go. I said, well, we're still waiting on a couple pieces of your gear, so you can't spar just yet. But
Daddy hasn't ordered those yet. But...
No, it was all ordered. It just, they didn't have it in stock. So we have to wait for a couple pieces. But he can spar with me in the basement. So we've been working on that. So having him as that enthusiasm is like, okay, he really wants to do this. So that means I need to get in the mindset of I need to be ready to go and do this with him to continue for me.
That's good.
So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And then again, this healthier idea of what does that look like for me this year, and how do I implement healthier eating habits? What's that going to look like? How do I address that? So part of our fast, as we kind of talked about last week about fasting and beginning of the year, is not eating anything after 8 o'clock. That's my thing this year. And wow, last night was hard. Got into a Marvels movie.
You wanted
popcorn.
It's a habit, right?
It's a habit. It's a habit. This is what you do when you watch a movie, and we get into this movie that's 3 hours long, and I'm like,
That's a lot of snacking, eh? Yeah.
It turns out I don't enjoy the movie as much as I do the snacks.
Just about.
Right?
It made it hard. It certainly made it difficult, but recognizing, no, I'm doing this for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm trying to can start the year off by focusing more on God. And how do I focus God in this very tempting situation to focus on, no, I don't need that. I can live without it and have the better focus. So yeah, that was a bit of a test yesterday for sure. But trying to stay focused on what does that look like this year as eating, as having better eating habits throughout the year. So
That's good.
Really looking forward to that. All right, so in the message today, Craig touched on a lot of pieces. Was there one that was really impactful or maybe stood out a little bit more than the others?
I like the reminder, what I kind of hinted at the beginning, that it starts with your heart. I think for me, it's so easy to jump to I'll just do the things that need to be done. And that's what I like to get to. Like, what do I need to do? Let me just do it. And the motivation and the desire and having the right perspective from the heart is such an important piece. And so even with the working out, like I thought, no, I've got that down. It's already set.
Yep.
I know how to set a habit. I've done the work to set the habit.
Yep.
It's done. I can move on now. And then having that all brushed away because something internally changed in me.
Yeah.
And realizing how important that is, the who before the do.
Yes.
And so when Craig talked a little bit about that, I thought that was really, really valuable. Like, it's about the heart. Where's your heart at? Even for things that we struggle with that are negatives in our character and our personality. That's coming out of somewhere. Where's my heart at? And so that prayer, that song, like, creating me a clean heart, oh God. I love that because that's really our ongoing struggle.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's the part that really hit me.
Yeah. That prayer from Psalm 139. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead in the way of everlasting. And I just think, like, I need to say that prayer like every day. Which kind of relates to that created me a clean heart verse 2, which has been a song on my heart for the last few months, and just like really wanting this deep desire to have a pure heart that's focused on God, that's seeking God. And there's just a lot of gunk, I guess, really, that can easily build up in our hearts and get in the way of us really pursuing and living a life that's honoring to God. And so being able to be humble enough to acknowledge, like, these are the things I'm struggling with, these are the barriers.
Right. Let's
work through whether it's like past hurts or hangups and all of that, and move forward and see what God has planned, and get rid of those barriers. So actually, I guess it's not really getting rid of. See, my thing is, I acknowledge the issue, let's get rid of it, check it off, and move on to the next issue. And that's not realistic. But I'm a to-do list type of person, and I also just don't want to have to deal with that same recurring problem over and over again. But I'm learning that this is a lifelong journey, and I'm constantly reminded of, I need Jesus. It's not just like a one-time thing. I've decided to follow you. That means I don't have to decide that anymore. It's okay, I'm weak here, and I'm weak there, and I fall short here, and so I'm always needing Jesus. Yeah.
It's funny how independent we want to become.
Yeah.
Right? I checked off that box. I said that prayer, Jesus, I'm done. I've got it now.
Yeah.
And it's not that way. Which is why through the whole Old Testament, over and over, it was all about heart surgery. They use circumcision of the heart. But that heart surgery, we need a new heart. We need a soft heart. Your hearts have become hard. And there's the balance of we do our part, but there is a softening of the heart that needs to happen that only God can do. And having to come back, how much we rely on him to come back for that I need a soft heart. So yeah, I think that's huge. It's funny because that verse, when I first heard it, I thought, well, that's weird because David's talking about examine me because I'm anxious, and examine me because, are my motives good? Is there something impure going on? I thought, well, why are those two together? Why is anxiousness paired up with, like, I'm doing things that are not good, that are wrong? And it seemed kind of odd to put those together. And then when Craig talked about, like, think about David and Bathsheba and that whole circumstance where David's making bad choices. Well, when you're making really bad choices, you are really anxious. So it's not anxiety in and of itself. It's when we do things that are not good in our lives to other people or to ourselves, it creates anxiety because we're doing that. And so I've been doing wrong. And so I feel bad in my relationship with God, but I also feel anxious because of it. Because you get into this, like, I've got to cover it up. What if I get discovered? I feel terrible about it. And so they kind of go together. Not always, but when you're doing things that are wrong before God, anxiety comes with that. And so one of the ways, just one, is to, if you have a pure heart, a lot of that anxiety gets wiped away. Like that part of the anxiety anyway. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you putting those pieces together. As a person who struggles with like anxiety, and I don't know, I appreciated that Craig was so vulnerable with like him struggling with being a workaholic.
Yep.
And actually my husband and I had a recent conversation about like my tendency towards that, where I'm not the type of person to work like to overwork per se in terms of like hours beyond like my 9-to-5 job. Yeah. But like I have an angst even beyond like work hours of thinking about the tasks I need to do. And it's constantly on my mind, and I'm very task oriented of I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And it's a successful day when I'm productive. So that could be a workaholic tendency. And so trying to...
Does that turn into I'm valuable then because I was productive?
That's exactly what it is. My values in what I do, not who I am. Yeah. And so I'm working through that hurt, and it's not easy. Yeah. And there's a lot of anxiety that comes with that. I get anxious about, like, I got to do a lot of stuff, but then I feel less anxious when I get it done. But should I have gone through all that anxiety initially of, you know, trying to get it all done as quick as I could? So. But
that's interesting because Craig is talking about self-examination and being open to the feedback of other people about where we struggle. And so you just had that conversation, right, with your husband about, like, this is where I'm struggling. Was that a good conversation? Was that hard?
It was hard. It was good. And, like, I appreciate how honest he was, and I didn't want to acknowledge I'm not a workaholic. I don't want to be labeled that way. And not seeing it as just like I am a workaholic, like that is my identity as a whole, because I think that's where I can often, like, when I get feedback, I just automatically think, oh, that's just how they see me. That is who I am, not what I do. So that piece made me more defensive. Like, don't call me a workaholic.
Yeah.
Like, I care about people. I do a lot of other things that don't show that, but realistically,
there's a piece of it.
There's a piece that's true.
Yeah.
And I need to come to terms with that. And so, yeah, I think God is using that conversation. Those hard conversations, to be honest, they're not easy.
They're not.
Sometimes they're not welcome.
But
they're necessary.
They are necessary.
So I'm excited to see what God is going to do with that. And maybe a little nervous. But who knows? Maybe the anxious piece won't be as strong. You know?
Yeah, it might remove some of that is kind of tied in with I have to own this. I have to do it all myself.
Yeah.
And so when I can trust God more, some of the anxiety goes away.
Yeah. That would be nice.
Wow.
Yeah, I kind of touched on a little bit of everything there for me, but the idea of this feedback from people around us, that kind of stood out to me.
Yeah.
Because I think we can easily get to a point of you just kind of almost like mute it. Because again, it can shine a light on an area where maybe you kind of know maybe there's a bit of a problem, but you don't want to hear there's a problem. And I think that for me, I think this year is going to be a big one. I think I need to step out into asking for a bit more feedback in that, to help address maybe some of those areas where maybe I'm not seeing an issue, but there is an issue. But then not being judgmental about it or taking a real defensive position. Again, that's another piece that I need to be working on myself to try to not get that way. That, they're judging me and no, they can't be right. And so this idea of you need, those at least two people that really do love and care about you, whoever it might be, if they're coming to you with this, they're seeing something or a tendency or a habit that's not, healthy or God honoring, that, to take the time to actually sit and listen and to talk about it, and start to address that issue that they're seeing, because a lot of times, we're easy to jump at somebody, but not recognize, that it's in us as well. So
I was reading a comment by a guy online, a pastor, who was he posts a lot of stuff about social media. And he said what he's seen, which he thinks is really dangerous, is on social media, people attack a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody's kind of gotten defensive about it and see it as an insult. And then if someone you care about happens to give feedback to you, well, that becomes an insult too.
Yep.
So now everything that's input, because that's what we've learned on social media, everything that's given as input is an insult.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's loving and people just want to help you.
Yep.
Which the reverse would be, if I always get defensive and shoot back at you when you say something to me, you stop. And now my blind spots, I don't have anybody to put it out.
Yep.
So I have to be asking God, but you want to have people in your life that you give permission to speak in, and that's really, really valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly hard to do because you're accepting personally that there's an issue that people are seeing. And sometimes that can be stumbling, is trying to accept the fact that there is an issue there when you believe there may not be.
Do you find it easy to give people that kind of feedback? So I don't mean like just shooting back at people, but I mean loving feedback about what they're struggling with.
I sometimes find it slightly difficult, and I think it's because I'm not sure what the response is going to be, or if they're going to take it as an offense or get extremely aggressive with it. And sometimes I tend to lean away from adding that because I'm like, well, I don't want to strain anything. I don't want to add to an issue and then really, hurt that relationship because of the feedback. And it might be because of everything else with, again, social media and everything else that just becomes an attack. Everything seems to be an attack.
It's an attack.
Right? But you don't know what that person's maybe experiencing. If that's how they're experiencing everything as an attack, it's hard to say. But I sometimes find it difficult to give the feedback that maybe needs to be given. Yeah. And I think it's more, again, I have to step out of myself and say it's not for me, it's for them. And if I'm being prompted to do it, I probably should be giving that feedback.
Which creates this weird paradox because your self-reflection that you need to work on could be giving feedback to other people about what they need to work on for their self-reflection. But you don't want to do that because that creates issues. And so then you're not reflecting on your own growth about giving that feedback. Yeah.
So you're not actually making any adjustments.
It's this weird, So I'm not adjusting the thing that would help them adjust.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a weird paradox, but yeah. Oh, man. Well, again, excellent conversation. Certainly had a lot of fun. We've come to the end of our time here. Wow. But of course, I want to thank you guys both for joining me today for the beginning of this series, which I think should be excellent moving forward as we continue to self-examine and look at, habits, healthy habits, maybe bad habits, things we need to address. So I think it should be really, really good going forward for the next few Talk It Over. It should be a lot of fun. Of course, we want to thank you guys again for joining us each and every week, and thank the tech team, of course, making this available so you can join us and be a part of our Talk It Over every week. And of course, we want to remember, whoever finds God
finds life.